Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. Welcome everyone to our first webinar for the week. Today's webinar's focus is drama theater, and our speaker is Brooke Perez from Southmore High School. And my thought was, in organizing all of these, was that I know we would all like to have solid plans for the fall and know exactly what we're going to do. But we don't have plans, and we don't really have an idea quite yet of what things are going to look like. But maybe by sharing things that worked during the last quarter of the school year and tossing around some ideas of what you're thinking for the fall, then maybe we can come up with some ideas and some jumping off points, and at least some starting research projects for you as you look at technology and different things for the 2020-21 school year. So Brooke is here. She's the drama theater teacher at Southmore High School, and she is going to share her screen and lead us through her presentation. At the end, we will have time for questions, so you can type them into the chat box as we're going if you don't want to forget or jot them down. And I think we'll be able to just turn our microphones on and share questions at the end since we're a small group, so that will be nice. Brooke, are you ready to go? Have to unmute yourself.
I had to get it back to the screen that I was going to share too, because I had changed it off of there earlier and didn't put it back on. Okay, so good morning. Some of your faces I recognize from events or previous meetings or that kind of thing. So good morning, everyone. Just a little screen about me. I'm not going to read it to you because you guys are perfectly capable of doing that yourself. I will be entering my 20th year of teaching. I have been doing the drama theater world for the entirety of my teaching career, though in some capacity or another, either at the middle school level. This is my, will be going on my 5th year at Southmore. So I have been doing that in some capacity throughout my whole teaching career. Either helping with the high school productions when I was at the middle school, doing my own middle school productions, and then taking over for Kay Bogus, who is also on this meeting, when she decided to take some small steps towards retirement and get out of the production side of things as much as she could, so she could spend quality time with family. So that's just a little about me. So in putting this presentation together, Elizabeth kind of wanted us to share a little about what our district and buildings mandated, what we did in order to create those classes for our kids, and so on and so forth. So our district requirements, when they came out, were pretty broad in their expectations. There were a lot of questions that came about when they put out their expectations as far as what our real requirements were going to have to be that were answered by our buildings. And I know our high schools probably functioned a little differently as far as what the building's specific requirements were going to be. We weren't allowed to enter our building with the exception of 30 minutes to collect anything that we needed to create our curriculum, which was a very brief period of time to think about what you needed for the next 10 weeks of planning from home in a digital world, which, you know, I hadn't really ever thought about teaching theater in the digital world. So it's kind of a huge learning curve. So we were assigned groups to call. We had to check their, technology of students to check technology and internet access. We were required to give 1 grade a week. However, as was common with most schools, I assume that there were no grades going to be entered in the grade book, with the exception of grades that improved the students' scores overall. Our grades were frozen. So, and then our district was already, for all high schools, we're already rolling out a 1-to-1 next year. So we had already started training in the online platform that we were going to be used, which is called Canvas. And then they asked us to use Zoom and operated it through our Clever account. And if you don't know what Clever is, it's kind of a huge account that has multiple different apps you can access, and the district has control on creative ways to make it more secure, so less chance of hackers being able to get in, and infiltration from people who don't or shouldn't have access to those apps. So they kind of tie it into that Clever platform. So they asked us to use our Zoom through there because they had gone in and created ways to make it more secure. As far as classes and setting up assignments, the first step for me was I really wanted to create assignments that were relevant and applicable, but that they were accessible to all of my students. I wanted them to be fun and engaging, but not stressful for families, because I know I had quite a few students whose parents lost their job when all of this started. So they were already, having lots of stress in their working environment. I also had a lot of kids who still wanted to earn points for their lettering for theater and also for International Thespian Society to be able to qualify to be inducted. And so I wanted to create opportunities for them to still be able to earn points in addition to earning a grade from those. So I really looked for different ways to make that happen and make that possible for them. So I was fortunate, Janie, who is on here, on the theater director and teacher Facebook page I'm a part of, he posted that he had connections and that kind of thing with the professional world of theater. And some of those, people behind the scenes that we don't always hear from. We always see the actors, but we don't really hear stories from our technicians and that kind of thing. And so he created Hidden Stars, which was fabulous because I was able to post those master classes for my kids to be able to participate in or watch after the fact. And I was able to, because they participated in those and they created worksheets to go along with those different masterclass videos. So I was able to award them points towards their lettering and their International Thespian Society points, because it would be kind of like participating in a master class, at a festival or that kind of thing. So I felt that that was a great way for them to be able to still earn points. And I just looked for lots of different ways for them to be able to do that. And then they can earn a grade for the class, but they could also earn points for that kind of thing. So I found myself doing lots and lots of research. There is a reason why I don't have a job that puts me behind a computer all day, because I really hate it. It is not something that I enjoy doing. But I did find ways to keep busy, which is good, because the walls of my house didn't close in on me as fast. But since we were not receiving grades, the downside to all of this work and finding these master classes was that the students were not engaged. I had very low participation. I did plan weekly Zoom meetings, and I did give an assignment outside of the masterclass opportunities. I gave an assignment each week that was just fairly general. It was for everybody. Most of the assignments could be done by my tech kids or my performers, and it crossed over nicely. I would just make some modifications for the tech kids on the assignment to make it more tech related instead of the acting and presentation side of things. But again, my largest roadblock was that participation, because once they realized they weren't getting grades, if they were happy with their A's, I didn't have anybody show up. Sometimes there were weeks that I would turn on a class Zoom meeting and I would sit there for about 20 minutes with the Zoom meeting on and nobody would ever join me. So that was one of my biggest struggles. I felt like I was finding a lot of cool things for them to be able to participate and still be engaged and still be learning something, but the participation was really low, which was very frustrating. Elizabeth had asked to share, what kind of feedback and that kind of thing we had gotten from students and parents, administration. And overall, I really didn't get a whole lot in the way of feedback or participation by the parents. It was really hard to get in touch with some parents, even those parents that you were really trying to get. I know you have to work really hard to fail theater. However, I had a couple students who had done that work and failed theater because they had, chosen to not do large projects and that kind of thing. So, trying to get a hold of those parents and those students and get them actively engaged was hard. And there were several parents that, I finally got a hold of them and I told them, this is where your student's at, and still the students didn't participate. And so they ended up failing. So that was frustrating, but the parent contact responses were severely reduced and no participation. Most had just checked out. So moving forward in our district, because we were going one-to-one, platforms are already mandated by our district. So we will continue to use Canvas and Zoom and Clever. Those will be the platforms that we will use going forward. The expectation is that all of our assignments will be loaded on Canvas for students to be able to access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And our district has already rolled out its return to school plan, and it's got 3 different options. The first option is school will be conducted as normal. The second option is that the students can bounce back and forth between online and in-person learning. And that will be used if they do have to be gone for 2 or 3 weeks because they get sick. And then the third option is completely virtual. So the idea is that all of our assignments will be on Canvas for them to be able to access. The large problem I see as far as my curriculum is concerned is more work, because the lessons that you can do in class and the activities that you can do in class when you're in person are going to look a whole lot different than the activities and the lessons you can give somebody who is doing that virtually. So I think per lesson, you're going to have 2 different assignment categories, one that would be an in-person assignment and one that would be modified to be a virtual assignment. And again, it's gonna kind of be double the work, which will be a little frustrating. All assignments, again, must be accessible all the time. My plan already for this coming summer was to overhaul my curriculum anyway, because of the new state standards that are rolling out. I wanted to start aligning my curriculum with the standards that are out for us. So in addition to that, I will just be making sure that my curriculum can both be virtual and in person and adaptable easily between the 2, because the idea will be, if say Friday we get a case of coronavirus and they shut down the school for 2 or 3 weeks, that Monday we will be on the virtual learning platform without any kind of interruption in our educational process. So there should be no lack or gap or any of that. But the other side of that is we are also going to still have students who may have a device, but they're not going to have access to the internet or any kind of Wi-Fi or that kind of option to be able to operate that device that they may have at home. So the assignments are still going to need to consider student access in the virtual world, and if they will be able to get access to that. Um, some apps that I found that I would like to investigate and try. There is one called Powtoon and one called ThinkLink, and both of them are presentation-based applications where students can, it's kind of a fancier version of creating video slides. They can be interactive presentations where they can put, let's just say that you're having them label the parts of the theater, and they can make it interactive. So you can click on the different parts and it'll pop up with information about what that part of the theater is. So you could mark backstage or you could mark the house, and they can give a little brief explanation about what that is. So those are some apps that I haven't really played with. I don't know how user-friendly they're going to be, but I do intend to give them a try. And then the last slide here are just questions and concerns for myself. I'm sure some of you are probably going to have those same things, in that, you know, what are the limitations on our productions going to be? What does social distancing in a theater classroom really look like? You know, is it possible without resorting to monologue-based performances and instructions? Will the students really participate in the virtual world of theater work? Or will our numbers drop because of the virtual aspect of theater? The types of activities and assignments that are applicable and relevant, but still adaptable, will need to be a broader range of choices and that kind of thing as far as the teacher. And then just the overall time consumption of creating the assignments and the activities so that they are adaptable between the two worlds. So lots of my concerns. I'm sure you guys probably share some of those same concerns. And now that kind of just brings us to the point where we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to be able to share and ask questions and say things about, you know, what you used, platforms you used. I know, you know, we used Google Classroom for a while. That's a platform we came off of, and I liked Google Classroom. It was user-friendly in that world. So you guys might have platforms that your districts are making you use, and you have great tips and tricks on how to utilize those, and thoughts and ideas on what you're going to do to make this work for you guys. So anyway, so this is now just, we're going to open it up for you guys to be able to interject and talk and so on.
And one thing before we get to questions, the internet access point, I saw something yesterday that came through State Department channels that superintendent has asked for 50,000 Wi-Fi hotspots to be purchased and distributed to schools. So that's a start. And of course, those wouldn't go to families that already have internet. So I think they would try to target areas with low connection, but I know that's a big focus of hers. So they're working on it. So some of you that maybe had students that didn't have good connectivity, that might hopefully be improved this next school year if you have to go online. So
that's awesome news.
Yeah. Questions, ideas?
Thoughts, concerns, suggestions. Christina.
I have a question. And this is for, I teach middle school. And so, you know, you've got some 10, but 11-year-olds with my 6th graders, and then 7th and 8th. And then I myself have small kids. So it is a personal question also, but for the blended learning aspect, and this is for everyone, what about when kids need to be home, but there's not a parent home because the state is opening up and everybody's going back to work? Like, how are we, I mean, has that been, and maybe it's for Elizabeth, has that been in discussion, like a daycare situation? Like how's that gonna work?
That's a great question. I think, personal opinion here, I feel that teachers and daycare providers should be the first ones to get the vaccine whenever it rolls out, along with our healthcare workers, just because we've got to have schools and daycares open to help support parents going back to work. I think everyone is hoping that if school districts can open as usual, then the daycares in the community would follow suit.
Right.
And so that everything would be open at once. And I have a feeling in smaller districts, probably what would happen if you had a case is that maybe the entire K-12 buildings would close, and probably along with that daycares, maybe just because of sibling situations. In larger districts like Moore, I could see a high school closing, but everyone else stays open, and or an elementary closing. I'm not sure how that'll work, but I'm sure the districts, that's up to district leadership and local control. So they'll figure that out.
Yeah, that is the current plan for Moore, is that it will only impact the school that is impacted. Everybody else will stay in school. Yeah.
Within the district.
Yeah, on campus. So if it's South Moore that gets closed because of a case of COVID, the other however many schools we have will still remain open, and everybody will still go on campus for their learning, if that's the option they're on, which again, we have 3 different options. So who knows what that's really going to look like as far as who decides to choose what option. It's going to be interesting.
Do they have to commit to an option and then stick with that one?
Yes. The virtual learning only, they have said if you choose option 3 where it's virtual learning only, and at semester you decide that's not working for you, you can switch to a different option, but they ask if you choose that option that you commit for the entire semester. The blended learning, the bouncing back and forth, that is the one that stresses me out, because I don't know. That's going to be a mess. I think that's just going to be awful.
And what they said was, as long as you show up, as long as you show up to like the drama class or the sports class, you can participate in the programs.
Right. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. I'm sorry, Christina, what?
I'm sorry, I keep thinking, I'll shut up finally. So for your activities, that's a great point. So for your activities, if they want to be a part of a show or a part of a sports team, they have to be in that class in person.
Yeah.
Because my district hasn't said anything, so I'm anxious to hear what other groups are doing.
Well, and I'm still interested to see, what all of this does to our numbers in the performing arts just overall. Right. As far as like I've talked to some alumni, and they're talking about how in their musical theater program at UCO, people are dropping like flies because they're not going to be able to do any productions at UCO. And so majors are dropping out, or they're taking a year hiatus because they're not going to be able to do so much stuff. It just makes me all that much more worried about what this next year looks like for my numbers and, our program, and what this does for that. And then, following this coming year, what does that do to my program the following year? Has it completely has it completely wrecked it and screwed my numbers up for a while, and I'm going to have a long time to rebound? You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm very worried. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Jamie. First of all, Brooke, thank you for the great words, the kind words about the Hidden Stars of Theater. My little project that has become a consuming thing. Just to give you guys an update on that, in case someone doesn't know, I'm continuing it. It has become this huge thing that is just getting bigger and is really cool. It started out just a way to help you guys as Oklahoma educators. I'm in almost every state and in at least 9 other countries currently using it as curriculum. So it's kind of nuts. The coolest thing about it to me is not only is it turning out to be useful curriculum, but I found a people group that have never had a voice. The professional stagehand community is just like eating this up. I have 70 people on the list to be interviewed. Broadway, national tour, even into industry now. And if you're not familiar with it, just a quick synopsis, as Brooke shared, it's a way to teach students about professions in theater that don't act, non-performers. I say non-performers, they are performing, but they don't get to take a curtain call, is what we say on the show. So stagehands, everything from child wranglers, all kinds of stuff. Hold on, boom, sorry. And it's just, and I do it through them telling their story, because to me, one of the biggest advantages is for kids in Latta or in Southmore to hear someone who came from a similar background as theirs actually making it and doing it top level successful. And you know, I tell all of my guests, not everybody is going to be inspired by your story, but if we can inspire 100 kids around the world, that's worth it. And so it's just the level of people that I'm getting is almost getting scary to me. You know, I kind of think if they knew that I'm sitting in my trailer in southeastern Oklahoma by myself with nobody else on a production team, they might go, what? But it's just really cool. Somebody told me they're going to get me connected with the guy who's won Tony Awards for sound design for Wicked, and I mean, top level people. So my goal is Lin-Manuel Miranda, so I can shut him down, tell him he's already a star, please leave. But that's going to continue. So I'm committed to this thing. We're actually, one of the sound guys from Hamilton has come on as my co-producer, and he's committed to trying to make it to where I'm actually making a living doing this, because the quarantine, everything cost me a career. I was a VP of sales and marketing in the oil field industry doing software. And so I'm done with oil field, finished with it. So, but I actually did take the position at Latta when Davita Smith left and went to Mounds, but it's only part-time. I'm teaching 3 courses, 2 performing arts, 1 humanities in the mornings at Latta High School. So I can be officially here now. So I'm excited about that. And actually getting to use my show as my own curriculum. It's like, oh, cool. But so that will be available. But actually, there's some other things in the works I want to tell you about as well. One of the other things I do is I write musicals. And I'm working with a composer who just graduated from the Wanda Bass School of Composition with a master's, Zach Garsh, who's incredibly talented. He is writing musicals for the Chickasaw Nation. And we are writing an online a musical written to be performed online for high schools. And we're at very beginning stages, and I would love to get feedback from you guys now or some other time, because there's a lot of directions we could take it. But just know that's coming. It's called, and this is really cheesy, but our goal is we got to get it out quick, and it's got to be easy for you. And so we're going with the obvious, and it's called Quarantined, T-E-E-N. And think of High School Musical being performed with people who are communicating through Zoom, basically. But we're going to deal with the things that kids dealt with and are dealing with through life online, through living in a Zoom quarantine environment. Again, it's the obvious, but it's because it's quick and it's easy. It pretty much writes itself. But it will be such that what we are thinking now is you basically will, and it will cost, but we're going to try to keep the cost low. We're thinking $500, $700 total, which includes basically getting you all of the material. And Elizabeth, help this. Okay, I'm not trying to do this as an ad. I really want people's feedback here, but because it's an ongoing thing, and some of you guys maybe can pilot it for us, which would be free. But the way it would work is we get you the script, we get you the tracks and the cut sheets, basically, that you get to your kids. They can be in their room. That is the set, is their room. Their costumes are the way they dress, because basically we're writing about who they are. And they record in segments. You take those segments and send them back to us, because the hardest thing is there is no good way to perform a musical online. I'm working with people in New York, with industry. There's just no good way to do it and to have a decent performance. So you send us those cuts, we edit it together for you, and we send it back to you to then play. We are not going to charge performance rights. It's just a project right, basically, is what we're calling it. So you can put it out there. And if you want to, you know, our thinking is we will probably have a pre-recorded chorus for small schools. So if you've just got 6 kids that can be leads and you don't have enough for a chorus, that's okay. They can do the leads, and then we'll take our chorus that we make and edit it in with them. Or if you've got enough kids for a chorus, then you can record them individually, and we'll put that together. That still makes me go, but we're working on how to do that in an economical way. So that's coming. Is that, first of all, one thing we want to make sure of is it's something that people would be interested in before we spend the time finishing it. Is that, can I get head nods if you guys say, hey, if that's even halfway decent, it would
That
at
sounds
least give.
very cool.
Okay, the goal is just to give kids as many performance chances as possible, right? So, and the thought is, you know, even if you had to do 6 casts of this, you could do it, right? And just maybe not all, just a way to put it out there and give them performance opportunities. And that's something that if it works, we could pump these out quick. We could do several of them. This one, just because of the nature of it, is probably high school, but I'm thinking about how can we adapt it for middle school. And I guess middle school kids could play high school kids. They play adults. So, you know, it would work. Even some parts, because I know one of the things as I research this is there's some kids who just don't want to be seen on camera for whatever reason. So I'm writing in parents' roles that are just audio and not video, because they live behind the door to the kids' room. And they've got a great song that's called But Whatever. Every time you say but whatever. Anyway, it's pretty funny. It's from my real life experience with my daughters. So that's one thing. The other thing I would suggest thinking about, and I can put some together, I had a really weird thing where I got invited to a 3-minute Zoom film festival, and all professionals in New York City. I almost think it was by accident, but I've ended up becoming an honorary member of a New York theater company, the Oberon Theater Company. And they invite me to all their stuff now, I think because I have a different perspective than all of them. But they do 3-minute film festivals every 2 weeks to keep their actors fresh, where they're take a writer, pair them with 3 actors, and they have a week to write, perform, edit, and then we have a film festival every 2 weeks. It's such a cool thing, and it's something that our students could easily do. So here's the other thing I'm thinking about, though. These are folks that I'm connected with now. These are writers like Write for General Hospital. One of them won the Academy Award for writing Birdman. So they're top level folks. I'm thinking about approaching them and asking them if they would like to collaborate with some high schools, and to do some things like that. And that I've got ideas, right? That's one thing I'm not short of. I'm wondering if you guys think it would be a good thing for your tech students to have an online, almost an online school. I have through Hidden Stars, I'm getting industry involvement, and some of those are trainers on. I had a phone call yesterday with a guy who works for Strand Verilite, and he is in charge of all of their trainers, and he's interested in this. He teaches for the Las Vegas Stagecraft Institute, which I actually have a call with them on Saturday to talk about how do you do, they've moved to online this year, and I want to find out how to do that, and is it a possibility of doing that for high school kids? So there are ways out there, and I'm going to be kind of committed to, you know, I'm only working till 11:30 every day. I got to figure out how to make some more money. That's not going to pay all the bills. But and that may be one of my questions is, if some of these things are legitimate, do you guys feel like there would be some way to support that financially? In other words, if we can come up with some stuff that's really good and helps you and is easy to do, is it something your district would be willing to pay for?
I know, I'm just going to interject really fast. I know that The tech side of things is where I struggled the most in this virtual world, because what do you do if you can't have them building your production sets and so on and so forth? There's so many, hey, watch this video on how this light plugs into the electrical socket and how you transition this electrical cord or how you program this sound effect. You know, there's only so much of that you can do. So that is where I struggled the most, in finding things that were applicable to them, that kept them engaged and still learning, yet still on the tech side of things without dragging them into the acting side of things. Because I know my personal son was a part of my program for the first, he was a freshman this year, so he was part of the program. He is very much, I do not want to be in the spotlight. I don't want to be seen. I don't want any part of that world. But he is all about the tech. He's all about the building. He's all about the deconstruction. He's all about learning the lights and the sound and the everything else. But I struggled with keeping things that were applicable to those kids who really have no desire to be a crossover kid and step onto that acting stage for, you know, the brief light. And I have several kids that are crossovers that do both sides of things, but I have a very strong handful of kids that want nothing to do with that side of things.
Absolutely.
And so that was a huge struggle for me. So I think anything that could involve those tech kids and get them in their world and only their tech world would be very, very beneficial. That's what I was going to ask you is, you know, on that musical you're writing, have you guys considered anything that the tech kids could do to be a part of that presentation? Because that would be one of those elements that would be important. If you could include that into that musical, that online digital Zoom musical in some capacity, that those tech kids could still be a part of that presentation and production process, that would be even better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And my mind has been churning that direction. It's a difficult thing. There are tech aspects, but they're not necessarily associated with theater, right? It's interesting. Somehow I found myself leading a discussion with Broadway stage managers about the future of their profession. I don't know how I get into these things, but it's the same thing. What do they do? And so what do we do with our tech kids in an online world? Well, we train them. I mean, that's about all we can do. Interestingly, the job that I lost, the oil field company I worked for, this was a software company. We had a small branch that did VR programming as well, and I'd already started them on a virtual reality training module for lighting, and we'd built a lighting board. And so I may contact those guys, since the company doesn't exist anymore, the technology's still there, and yeah, and maybe that's it. Now again, some of this stuff, if I try to do it, there's going to be cost involved, because I can't do that for free. And if I ask those professionals to come in and teach actually on a committed, I'm going to need to pay them. So that's one of the things that I need feedback on, is what kind of budgets. I would love to do it for free if I could, and I want to do it as cheaply as I can, but I just have no concept as to how much could a school pay if we could provide some of this stuff. So maybe I'll follow up. Brooke, maybe you and I can have some conversations about that offline. But the 3-Minute Film Festival, I will get that. The other thing I will challenge you guys in is this. Be creative, and I know you are creative or you wouldn't be in this, but people are accessible, okay? I mean, this is a time we've never experienced, and it's a time we will hopefully never experience again. And right now, there isn't a person that I've gone after that I haven't spoken with. Now, some of them I'm still pursuing, but every level of person is sitting. In fact, the higher the level, the more quarantined they are, because their agents are insisting on it. And they are scared and they are bored. And Austin Pendleton, I don't know if you guys know that name. If you Google him, you will find out who he is. He played model in the first Broadway production of Fiddler on the Roof. He is a famous playwright. He is top level. And I've got his cell phone number. I've got his email address. Why? Because he needed somebody to talk to, and I was willing to talk. there are people who you can get to talk to your classes right now that you will never be able to get them. They would never have considered it before, but they're just looking for things to do, and things that are positive are there. So if there's somebody that you want to go after, you can contact me and I'll help you kind of get a clue as to how to do that. If you think, I would love for this person to talk to my kids, go for it. I think it'll surprise you. And my interactions have been, they all really do love education and to support it. And they love feeling good about themselves, the really famous ones. They like to hear themselves talk. So, yeah, but I love to collaborate too. So if you have ideas or thoughts, man, let's get together and talk about it and do this thing together. Yeah. So I'm a little disheartened that there's not a whole lot more people here, but that's okay.
It's summer.
It is summer. The other thing I would suggest is, Brooke, you mentioned the students who don't, my wife is a first grade teacher, so I've been talking through all of this stuff with her since we started as well. Kids who don't have devices, one of the things that I'm going to do is record everything I do and then email it to them. So even if they can't watch it live, at least they can see it. So, when we think about teaching a lesson, don't just think about, well, it's got to be taught live. In fact, that's why we do Hidden Stars pre-recorded. I actually like the ability to not have to worry about if I'm going to mess up what I say. Record your lessons. You can go in and edit it afterwards. There's some easy free editing content that make it really jazz it up. And the more jazzy it is, the more your kids will look after it. So.
Can I ask you, Jamie, what suggestions you have as far as free editing software for videos?
Oh, let me put that together and get it. I'll put it on the Drama Network thing.
Yeah.
The ones I use aren't free, and so
Okay.
I'll have to go back and look. But there's definitely, even just if you use Apple, the free, both Apple and Windows, the free editing software that comes with those platforms is excellent. Excellent now.
Okay.
iMovie for your Windows, that's something that comes with Windows.
Right.
And then Final Cut, there's a free version of that. It may be called iMovie for the Apple. Both of those are good, but there's some other stuff online as well. I'll put together a list and get that out there.
Yeah. Just really fast to reference the Facebook group page that both Jamie and I have brought up. It's called High School Theater Directors and Teachers. It really has been an awesome resource because people just get on there and they post questions, and there are so many people on that page that there's just a wealth of information and knowledge. If you don't have the experience with it, somebody out there does. So again, High School Theater Directors and Teachers is the name of the page. That is one of them. There is also one called Technical Theater Educators, which is also a very useful resource for the tech side of things. They put a lot of great information and useful resources on there too. And again, people will just post questions. Hey, I need information about how to do X, Y, Z. And then yes, Elizabeth just posted Oklahoma Drama Network, which is a Facebook page, which is also good. Just as somebody that teaches at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm probably distribute Hidden Stars to 10 different free theater teacher, drama teacher Facebook groups, and every one of them has different people and different resources. So yeah, use all of those because they all have good ideas and good free resources there.
Yes. Yes.
And there's a free podcast by, is it Annie Dragoo? Anybody listen to that?
Yes.
That's got some great content as well.
And as far as money, your districts are getting CARES Act funding, and they're probably targeting a lot of that towards masks, wipes, gloves, extra cleaning supplies, maybe hiring more janitorial staff, of course, devices, things for distance learning. But the suggestion is also there that they need to go to their teachers and ask if there are things that need to be purchased to make distance learning work. So like with Jamie's project, you might be able to go to your administration and say, hey, look, I really want to do this, but it's going to cost X amount of dollars. And this isn't something I typically do, but this is what we need to make this year work. So are there funds? And they should be able to use those funds for that, because this isn't something that you would normally have in your calendar curriculum.
And Elizabeth, do you know, one of the things I don't know about is educational grants and funding. Because we're looking at potentially going with Hidden Stars kind of as a branded nonprofit, educational nonprofit. So any resources you have as to potential, you know, because if we could get grants to fund it all, that would be even more amazing.
I was going to ask you, Jamie, do you have any kind of thoughts as far as on the different technical theater lesson ideas you were throwing out there? Do you have a general, hey, this might cost XYZ to do, so that we could go to our districts and say, hey, this is a program that's coming out and our portion to be able to be a part of it would be this amount of money? Do you have any kind of like ballpark figures?
I really don't yet. I hope to have that after this Saturday. I'm speaking with the lady who runs the Stagecraft Institute of Las Vegas, and she just took her school online. So that's kind of some of the information I'm hoping to get from her is, what does it take financially? What does it take? What do you pay your teachers? That kind of stuff, to try to get some of that. And after that call and some cogitating, hopefully I'll have a better idea. But right now, I really don't. Yeah.
Elizabeth, is that something when he does figure that out, that he could send that information to you and you could send it out in the fine arts newsletter or something to that effect as an option to get it out to everybody? Awesome.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And the next fine arts newsletter will come out early July. So you'll probably know that, have an idea at least.
Yeah, within the next week or so. Yeah, I actually had another question, and that is, would there be an interest in live webinars, like during the school hour, with some of the guests, like Mike, my co-producer, who's the audio guy for Hamilton? Do you think that's something that would be of interest to folks?
I think it would be of interest. It would just be a matter of, like, right now, I don't know how our district is going to arrange the virtual schedule. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't been given any of that information. So, you know, is it going to align with that, you know, the physical hours of the day in the virtual world? Will it, you know, be like Mondays and Wednesdays are first, third, fifth hour, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are second, fourth, and sixth, and Fridays alternate? Who knows what that's going to look like? So, you know, until we have some of those answers, I couldn't commit for sure, but I know that my kids really enjoyed being a part of the Hidden Stars live audience. They thought that was a really cool experience. So I know they would be on board to want to do that. If that was an option, it would just be a matter of timing. But I think doing that with a live audience for those that could come, like you have been with Hidden Stars, and then having the recording also for those that couldn't come would be a great way to go to.
Do you think it would be something that people would be interested in if we arranged for like $100 stipend for one of these guys to do 2 sessions or something just for your class? I'm just thinking through all the different possibilities. Because I know, you know, I mean, that's one of the things for them. They're just, they're sitting around not working till tours kick back in or Broadway opens, which they're saying now could be maybe spring 2021, January 2021, maybe. And with the uptick in everything right now, who knows?
I know I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm sorry. The quiet bugs me. But I know that I would probably figure out how to find the funds to do $100 stipend for 2 sessions with my class, because it would be a cool experience. So I would figure out how to make that happen, if that was through my boosters or through just an extra little fundraiser here or there, because that's not a lot to ask for 2 sessions with a professional in your classes.
Yeah, and I just threw that number out there. I don't know. They may laugh at me, but I don't, knowing them, and most of them are just super people. It's been the best part, is getting to know. There's no ego among these people. It's pretty crazy. They're awesome, and they love to educate, which is pretty cool. Okay, I'll ask them too. I'll start asking around amongst them and say who would be interested in that.
Do we have other questions, comments, ideas?
I've got some ideas. I'm from Holdenville. We're basically building our theater program from scratch. We don't have very much, we barely have any lighting in our auditorium. So, no reflection on them. It's just that it's been neglected. But anyway, thinking of, the quarantine and, the possibility of us not going back into the classroom, one thing that popped into my mind is, now the kids will understand the theater of the absurd. They wouldn't have got it 5 years ago, last year, but now that they've been in such an absurd situation that we've been in for the last 4 months, they would get it now. And so one of the things that I'm looking at doing is No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre, and having them be in their house, not being able to leave type of idea. And I could do that with several casts, because it's only a cast of 4, but, if you had, several groups of that casting, I could see that working. Another idea that I had is there's a short story that Anton Chekhov wrote called The Bet. And it's about a lawyer and a banker and I can't remember which one character is which, but they make a bet that one of them cannot live for a year in total isolation without any contact with anybody else. And so I thought I could turn that into a script and do either a 2 or I think there may be 3 characters. It's been a while since I've read the story, but do that with my kids. And the bet could possibly be done with middle schoolers. I don't know. I'm not a middle school teacher, but so think about things and from different genres, even, maybe doing something with poetry recitation. My school participates in Poetry Out Loud. And I don't know how they're going to do the competition this year, but it's still a really, really good program where they, it forces the kids to get up and recite poetry. And so think about things that, where people have been writing about in isolation. The Diary of Anne Frank, for example, would be something that you could do. So anyway, that's the way that I'm geared, because I'm not geared musical theater ways, because that's not what I was trained in. I was just trained to do regular stage productions. So anyway, that's where my brain's been going.
Those are great ideas. I love the theater of the absurd. It's perfect. Yes, that is absolutely true.
Other thoughts or ideas? I know performances are still up in the air, but is anyone trying to hold on to productions that you were supposed to do in April or May and thinking about trying to rerun those this fall and what you might do?
So we were slated to do Charlie Brown, and it didn't happen. So I've had the kindness of the community is letting me hold on to the set. All the companies have said that's fine. We're extending all the dates. I just got an email about the possibility of streaming it if needed, but I can't remember what call I was on, but we were talking about different ways to present if the crowd situation can't happen. And some of you might've been in there, I don't remember, but they talked about spreading the show out through the school, especially if it's like a vignette production, like Charlie Brown, there's a lot of monologues, you could just do certain scenes. So then it would be kind of like, just a presentation of the scenes, and you would have like a path that you would take. Obviously, we would have more than 6 feet, because if you're using, you start in the front of the school and you have the opening, and then you go into our first hallway and you have the first scene, and then you go into the commons. And so you could do small groups, obviously the 10 or under, or if there's, whatever's happening at that point for your audience. You could have the scene with the, Charlie Brown happens to only be a few actors. In a lot of scenes, the musical numbers are different, but I would think about that. So then you could maintain, and you could have, people needed to wear masks, that sort of thing, hand sanitizer at all the stations. You could have, you could present it live, but in a different form rather than a huge group of people. In my area, that's 50 to 100. You could still have it live. So I'm thinking for production wise, I want to do a live and a virtual. I want to have both, because, if you have grandparents or people that aren't able to get out, that's kind of where my brain is going. If I have it the way I want to do it, but I really thought that was clever. I can't take credit for that really great idea, but to spread out the scenes. So you're sort of walking along, and it's not interactive. I guess it could be, if your show tailored itself to that, but I thought it was a really clever idea,
It's like medieval pageant wagons. That's an awesome idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself, Jamie.
Sorry, I thought I did that. There was a production in New York City, I can't remember the name of it, that actually went on for several years, and it was that way. They had a prescribed path that small groups would go through the building. It was very avant-garde, very strange, but that's a great idea. And I know a set that will be available again, if you need portions of it. But that's one consideration, is if you split that up, keep in mind that you've got to, if you have, because especially like Charlie Brown, every scene happens on the same set somewhat. You could vary that some, but it may mean creating multiple set pieces. You could do projection though. That would help, because most schools have multiple projectors, and so you could project the same scene. Yeah, that's I hadn't thought about that, but boom. So now, thanks. You're going to keep me up all tonight thinking about that.
I thought it was wise, and I'm trying.
It is.
For the life of me, I can kind of see a face and hear a voice, but I've been on too many Zooms. I don't know who it was.
The other thing I'll throw out there, just general, and this isn't for whatever, some of you guys know that I do scenic design and construction and props design and construction too. And for schools, my stuff is available. So yeah, if you need to borrow stuff, I'm not that far, Catherine, from Holdenville here in Ada. So if you need, if you're just starting out, in fact, I have some pieces my wife says I need to get rid of because they're taking up storage. So if you need some flats and step units, I have too many. But yeah, borrow my stuff.
Any other thoughts? We probably need to wrap up. We've gone over our hour.
Thank you, Brooke. It was great.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming. I mean, it really does help to be able to just throw out thoughts, concerns, and ideas all together, because none of us have any answers and we'd all like to have them. So it's really nice to know that there's lots of people in the same boat we are, and we can all be supportive of each other and that kind of thing. So thanks, Elizabeth, for planning this, to just get some of us in the same room together to just be able to have a conversation. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and we will have phase 2 guidance sent out from the OSDE in mid-July, and that's going to have detailed, at least 2 pages long, information for drama theater and guidelines that you could follow to make the year work. So we're working on it, and hopefully we will also have the results. There's a research study being done by the National Federation of High Schools with the aerosols and how far kids actually breathe out when they're singing and dancing and shouting and speaking in theater. So we'll have those results by then, and maybe we can make some good recommendations for everyone.
Can I ask you, Elizabeth, how much will that impact the guidelines the State Department puts out? And will they consider the fact that we have football guys out on a football field tackling and sweating all over each other when they make those guidelines? Will they consider all of that, that we do have sports in session that are contact sports, and the restrictions that they suggest for theater and music and dance and all of us shouldn't be stricter than those that the football boys have to follow?
Yeah, just about every production I've ever done has involved some kind of stage combat. You know, we have
Or
to
kissing.
we have to be able to touch each other. I'm sorry, if we're going to be in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. I mean, my feeling is that I'm hoping that study will show that for the most part, acting and singing and talking doesn't do much more than what it does under normal circumstances. And yeah, if we're going to have crowds and stands seated together and kids on a court throwing things to each other, touching each other, football field, yeah, then we should be able to have drama theater activities, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
same level.
I just didn't know how much they would let that study impact, because it does involve the performing arts, if they would let that impact it overly cautious because of whatever that results. I just
My concern is did that, then this year I feel like support for the arts is we're all right, especially in comparison to some other states. But the next year, I'm not sure what our budget shortfall is going to be with fallout from oil and gas. And so if we really limited fine arts this year, then next year when schools have to start making tough decisions, they'll say something like, oh, well, we didn't have a musical this past year, so we can cut the drama teacher, it's okay. So we don't want that to happen. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all. I will make sure this recording is up here in a few days. We'll get it on YouTube and have it available for folks. And we'll also have Brooke's presentation there. So if you know someone who missed, let them know it'll be available.
Thanks, guys. It was good to see everybody today. Have a great week.
Thank you.